Welcome everyone, my name is Mike and this is Mike and the Magic, a YouTube channel dedicated to the magic of Disney vacations. Now, I've done this channel before and I accidentally deleted it, but one of the most popular videos that I made was how I overcame my fear of flying. And honestly, it was the most rewarding video that I made because I had so many viewers tell me how my video helped them overcome their fears and they got to go on their vacation that they would take, some of them all their lives. Now, when I filmed this video originally, it was before the tragedy that happened in Washington, D.C. So in the video, I make a couple of comments that are no longer relevant about how there hasn't been a major commercial airline crash in the U.S. in 20 years. That sadly came to an end. And it doesn't take into consideration the other flight tragedies that happen overseas, such as Air India. I'm only focusing on US-based travel. So I hope this video helps you overcome your fear of flying. Whether you're flying on a commercial airliner here in the United States, or you're lucky enough to travel in the biggest hunk of junk in the galaxy, I hope you can do it without any fears whatsoever. Enjoy the video, and let's talk flying. Now, flying is a major part of a lot of family vacations, and a lot of people are scared of flying. I used to be one of those people. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you guys how this book allowed me to overcome my fear of flying. To start things off, we're going to talk about my history of flying. The first time I got on an airplane, I was in the 8th grade. No worries whatsoever. When you're that age, you don't have a care in the world, and the thought of death didn't faze you whatsoever. I never really had any fear up until my 30th birthday. My then fiance and my family, we all flew to Las Vegas for my 30th. Easy flight there, had a great time. Then on the way home, as we were accelerating to our cruising altitude, the plane was going up and it felt like it was just fell backwards out of the sky. I freaked out. I had never experienced anything like that. I swore we were about to die, and we made it back to Dallas with no issue whatsoever. However, my view of flying changed forever that day. I was scared to death to do so. Now, this was in February of 2009, and I was engaged to be married in October of 2009, so 8 months later. We had a honeymoon plan. We were going to fly to Miami to go on a cruise ship for a week, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. The cruise left 2 days after our wedding, and there was no way I could drive from Dallas to Miami during that time. So I went to my doctor, told him about this, and he prescribed me Xanax. He wanted me to take this for the flight, so it'd knock me out and I'd get to Miami and enjoy my honeymoon. So that's what I did. While that helped relax me, I was still scared of flying. I still trembled when I got on the plane until the medicine kicked in. I hated every moment of it. We flew home from the honeymoon, had a little bit of a rainstorm and turbulence. Even with the medication, I was still freaked out. We didn't fly again until February of 2011. So that was a 2-year break. It was for my wife's 30th birthday at this point in time. And again, I went back to my doctor, and this time he gave me Ativan. Another pill I shouldn't have been taking, but it did work. So we flew to New Orleans. It was only a 45-minute flight, so it wasn't too bad. Bad side effects of that is that you can't drink the day you take the medication. So I couldn't drink the first day we were there. The last day was not such a big deal because we flew out kind of early in the morning. After that trip, I was done with flying because even though it was a short one, I was still nervous as hell. We ended up having a baby, and I didn't want to travel like that. I didn't want to get on an airplane, not only with a baby, but also being the fact that I was scared to death to get on a plane. Then 2017 rolled around, and as I mentioned in my How I Became a Disney Adult video, I talk about my mother-in-law gifting us a trip to Walt Disney World. The only stipulation was, she said, you guys have to get there on your own, so you have to pay for your own flights. I didn't want to fly. At this point in time, it had been 5 years since the last time I flew. I was nervous as hell. So instead of looking forward to the trip as much as I should have, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about having to get on that plane. And up to 2 days before we took off, I was seriously thinking about driving and meeting my family there. The only thing that convinced me to get on that plane was me thinking, if that plane is really going to crash, and I believe that, why would I let my family board it? I told myself I was being silly, but again, went back to my doctor and got more medicine. So I learned with that medicine, it would knock me out or make me not care enough that I could actually get on an airplane. But I knew this was not a long-term solution. I couldn't keep doing this. So I found this book. So Captain Tom Bunn talks about the plane. He talks about statistics of fatality crashes in the US. Spoiler alert, there hasn't been any in pretty much 20 years. And he talks about every aspect of the flight so you know exactly what you're getting into. So when I started reading the book, he talked about how planes they really can't fall out of the sky. It's lift that keeps them in the air. He compared it to pushing a toy car through a thing of jello. It just, the car, you could put it in the jello mold and it won't fall down. When you push it through, it's like a thick resistance there. He said the air was basically the same way. Kind of like when you stick your hand out the car window, it automatically lifts it up. Same thing with the plane and its wings. It automatically lifts it up. So it's really impossible for it to just fall out of the sky. He talks about how there's so many contingency plans on a plane. So if one engine goes out, you have another one that the plane can easily fly on, so that gets you safely back to the airport. But what really changed my mindset was when he talked about the liftoff. When you take off, you're flying in the air, like I mentioned, it happened to me in Vegas. And when I told you I felt like I was falling out of the sky, he explained that feeling and stated what causes that is the pilot is actually reducing engine speed because you've almost reached your cruising altitude. And why it feels like you're falling, all it is the plane slowing down. That helped out a lot for me. That was a major thing for me. If you're getting value on this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. It means the absolute world to me. I'm still trying to grow this channel, and your support by giving the thumbs up or leaving a comment helps my video go out in the algorithm so more people can see it and we can grow this channel. I would like nothing more than have the silver play button back on that wall. So now I try to fly, taking things that I've learned from this book. Other things that I look for is the crew. The crew members, if they fly every day. So if they're not scared, you shouldn't be scared. This helped me one time on the way to Miami. We were taking off in a thunderstorm in Dallas. The back of the plane felt like it was shaking all over the place. I was scared, gripping to the armrest. But I looked back and saw the flight crew, and they were laughing. I was like, we're not in danger. The flight crew is laughing. They do this every day. If they thought something was wrong, they would look scared as well. Another thing that helped out was describing turbulence. The turbulence is just basically unstable air, causes the plane to jump a little bit. Pilots don't fear this. When they hit turbulence, the pilots don't fear falling out of the sky. The pilots fear spilling coffee on their uniform. So reading this book, I decided it's time to fly again. Now, in the book, they did mention that you don't want to take the Xanax, you don't want to take the Ativan, anything of that nature, because your body does not learn the flight process. It numbs the body, so you don't get to learn the experience of turbulence. You don't understand what's going on with the plane. All that's being masked by the medicine. But I wasn't ready to let that go. I followed everything else in the book. It mentioned counting that will help out with anxiety. So if you're scared, start counting, whether it's counting, just 1 through 12, 12 through 1, or if you count the number of hats you see people wearing on the plane. So that's what I would do. I would count back and forth through the plane to help take my mind off what was going on. Another thing that helped me out was making a music playlist. I remember reading that book, they said the first 5 minutes of the flight are the most dangerous. I think the statistic was 95% of all flights that crash is within the first 5 minutes. The other 5% is midair. But again, the likelihood of a crash is pretty much next to none. So I made a playlist for that first 5 minutes. When the pilot comes on and says we're cleared for takeoff, I hit play. The playlist lasts a little bit over 5 minutes, so I know once it's over with, we should be in the clear. And I did that for about 4 to 5 flights. And then I decided I'm going to get brave and quit the medication. For me personally, medicine is something I hate to take. I hate side effects. I hate everything about it. And I know it's something that you're going to need at some point in time in your life, but if I can avoid it, I'm going to. So I gave it a shot. I got on the plane. I was nervous, and I started counting guys wearing hats and kind of going through and doing that. I got onto the plane Wi-Fi so I can surf the internet. I checked out, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, trying to take my mind off what was going on. When it was time to take off, I hit that play on that playlist, started scrolling Instagram and doing everything I could to take my mind off the takeoff. But I did it. I did it for the first time, and I was pretty stinking proud of myself. Nervous as all get out, but it worked. That particular trip, we were actually going to Orlando for Walt Disney World. Had a great time. On the flight back, we took off again in a rainstorm. Had some turbulence. I freaked out a little bit, but I was calm and cool. I did my first round trip flight without medication since 2011. And every trip since then, I've been going without medication, and each one gets better and better. The author, while not a doctor, was absolutely correct about the medicine. If it's, covering your fear and anxiety and not allowing you to adjust to it, you're never going to get over it. He talked about there was a study done where they took two groups of people. Half the group got, like Xanax for anxiety, the flight anxiety. The other half got a placebo. Now, out of the ones who got the Xanax, only one of them had a panic attack. Then those who had the placebo, 50% of them had a panic attack. Now, you think that would be awful, but the second flight, completely different. Out of those 50% that had the panic attacks, the second flight, only 10% had panic attacks. So their body actually learned and adjusted to what was going on and realizing their lives weren't in danger. So now I've done about, I want to say 6 round trip flights without medication, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back. In fact, this last flight, I really didn't have to listen to my playlist. I was calm, cool, collective. I have my routines which help out. As I showed you guys on our last trip to Disney Universal, I get to the airport early. I get my breakfast, Whataburger through Love Field Airport is my breakfast of choice. I get on the flight as I'm boarding the plane. I typically fly Southwest. I rub the little Southwest heart on the side of the plane and find my seat, and I'm good to go. Even this last time, I didn't even get on the Wi-Fi. Didn't need it. I just watched the free movies on there and talked to my family. I truly believe I've overcome my fear of flying, and I have this book to thank for it. I've actually shared this with coworkers. I had a coworker who was going to Hawaii from Dallas-Fort Worth. That's an 8-hour flight. She was scared to death. I let her borrow this book, and it worked for her as well. I truly, truly love this book. So I'm going to put a link to it in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. I hope this helps you guys. Flying is not so bad. I actually kind of look forward to it now, and that's a big change. All right, I thank you so much for watching to the very end. Until the next video, y'all have a magical week. Bye.